Amen. So with that, welcome Dave Bisbee.
Hey, good. Little hot. Let's work on this. Okay, are we good? In the back, can you hear me? Yes, perfect. So I am honored to be here. They let me come back after the morning services, so I guess they went well, so that's good. We are going to talk about some topics tonight that are really, really important. And the reason they're so important is we have so many young people walking away from their faith. And what we're going to talk about tonight is just to kind of give us some ideas about how to engage in conversations with some of those that have walked away. So we're going to have a two-part series separated by a 10-minute stretch break. And during the stretch break, I could do this. I would invite you to check out all the free resources back on the table there. All right, so part one, understanding the basics. So first of all, who are we? That's us. Little small nonprofit, Folsom based. Three guys started about 8 years ago. Since then, God has blessed us enormously in terms of just, I tell my friends, I feel like the dog that finally caught the car. You know, my jaws are on the bumper and all four paws are off the ground. I'm going, whoa, this is amazing. So we are actually friends and colleagues with some of the more well-known, bigger ministries, Answers in Genesis, ICR, and then Creation Ministries International. And one of my personal friends and great inspirations is Mike Riddle, who's been doing Creation Apologetics for over 40 years. And he was one of the key people that got me to start teaching it 20 years ago in Bible school. So, all right, mainly the way that we communicate and get the message out is through social media. Surprise, surprise. So we have a YouTube channel, app, all that stuff. Again, please, during the break, check everything out. Why does the topic of evolution matter? So if you were here this morning, you might remember this. About 10 years ago, Barna and another group did a survey. They interviewed 1,200 people in their 20s that were raised Christian and walked away from their faith when they hit college. Okay. Now, based upon that research and looking at America and what's being taught and the way churches are going, they made a very disturbing prediction. 2 out of 3. That's the current number. 2 out of 3 youth that are in church programs are going to walk away from their faith when they hit college. Ouch. So they actually went and they did what scientists do. They took all these questions and kind of analyzed the data, and they came up with 3 main reasons of why it's happening. And the first is this one: hypocrisy, people being hurt by people who are Christians or in the church, people not walking the talk. That was number one, way above the other ones. The second one is this: the church has too many rules. How many of you are human? Guess what? You've got a sinful nature, just like me. And sin is fun for a while. So you get a lot of these students that are raised in conservative households, homeschool, private schools, sort of thing. And then they get into college, and it's crazy, the amount of temptation that they're met with, okay? So far, we have emotional wounding, some bad feelings connected to a church, and then we have this desire and lots of temptations. But this is the one that my ministry likes to focus on. It's this one. A lot of times when they get to college, Christians will be singled out. And we've had students tell us that somebody will say to the students, "Are you a Christian?" And if they raise their hand and say, "You won't be by the time you're done with my class." So they'll have professors tell them that the Bible is a fairy tale, that it's not true. So you know what? Don't worry about the Bible. That's just something your parents taught you to control your behavior. Go do what you want. Wow. So there's the triple whammy. You got emotional wounding. You've got sinful desires, because we're human. And then you have a professor who says the Bible, it's not true. Go play. That's what's going on. Now, I can't do anything about the first two. Okay. So I try to focus on the last one, which is just to show people you don't have to choose between science and the Bible. All right. By the way, this is a great book. I wish I had enough money to give every pastor in America that book. It talks about people that have left the church, and more importantly, why they left and ways to try to bring them back. So you taking notes, mister? You got a picture of that? Okay, good. All right. This is what it's going to be like tonight. For the next 17 hours, we are going to, I'm just kidding. We're going to do 40 minutes and then 10-minute break. It's going to feel like that. All right, let's start with this. Is evolution a scientific fact? Before we answer that question, let's talk about science. So there are two different types of science, observational and historical. Observational science is what you do when you do experiments. Who's done experiments? Who's blown something up? Caught it on fire? Got to write 500 times on a chalkboard, I will not play with electricity? Oh, I know somebody who did that. Yeah, that was me. Anyway, observational science is where you get to do experiments in the here and now, and you're dealing with the physical properties. So you come up with an idea, and then you test it. And what's really interesting about this type of science is, first of all, it's where we get technologies, planes, trains, drones, clones, all that stuff, right? This type of science, your worldview, what you think about God and origins and the Bible, doesn't matter that much. It does to some extent, but not that much. If you follow the procedures, you'll get the same result. This is the type of science that is totally different. It's called historical science. So what happens is people play in the dirt, and they dig up these things called fossils. We had a bunch of them this morning. And fossils, the thing about fossils is a lot of them are creatures that no longer exist. So people have to come up with ideas about them that aren't testable, okay? So you can weigh them, you can measure them, but when it comes to what that creature was like, what it ate, how it behaved, how that fossil was made, you're left to your own ideas, which are really subjective. So what I have learned over the years is that historical science, there's no such thing as an objective scientist. Why? Because they're people. And there is no such thing as an objective person. We all have our backgrounds in our education and our bias that we engage whenever we interpret these fossils, all right? So that's why two equally educated people, smart people, can look at bones like that. Everybody say hi to Artie. That's your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandma. Did you know that? Or is it? No, it's not. Anyway, but people will look at that and say, that's a missing link between people and humans, or that is an extinct ape. Who's right? Silence, right? I think we're right because I believe in the Word of God, okay? But there's no test that I can do unless I have a time machine to go back and look at that creature when it was alive and say, okay, this is what it was. That's what the debate is all about, and that's why you will see people on both sides of the equation. All right, let's get back to the question, shall we? Is evolution a scientific fact? When somebody says, do you believe in evolution? Please don't say no. Did he say that? Yes, he said that. Okay. The reason is there are different meanings for the word evolution. If you say no, there's a high chance that person's going to think you're not very smart, and the conversation's over, and they're going to walk away because they're thinking of these other ones, all right? So instead of saying no, ask them, what do you mean by that? Are you talking about adaptation? Are you talking about genetic variation? Are you talking about natural selection? Or are you talking about goo to the zoo to you, Darwinian evolution? Because these are radically different, and some of these are scientifically valid. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. That's why the title is Understanding the Basics. Okay, I got to get a little drink. So these are all different things that are given the name evolution. The English language in particular is kind of funny. We have a lot of words that mean different things. The word bat. Okay, this is where you interact. Raise your hand if you can give me one word for the meaning bat. You, sir. Yeah, you didn't raise your hand, but do it anyway. Yep. Baseball bat. What's another one? Yeah, a little creature that flies in the eye. Or ladies, you bat your eyes when you want your husband to do something for you. Okay. But if you get a bat in your eyes, or you get a bat in your eyes, that's a lot different, right? So that's what we need to keep in mind. So when people talk about evolution, I will just back up and say, time out. Let's get more specific. Let's look at these terms rather than calling it that. So we're going to talk about these two first. So dogs are a fun one to look at. So scientists, both secular and Christian scientists, currently think That is the ancestor of the dog kind, wolf-like ancestor. But there's a question that's a very valid question. Why do we have so many different breeds of dogs? It's actually, the answer is a combination of these: adaptation, genetic variation, and selective breeding. When God created things, 5 times he said, be fruitful and. So God gave creatures the ability to sense changes in their environments and adapt. But there's limits to it, which is really important to recognize. So let's talk about, how do creatures adapt? It's a process called continuous environmental tracking, which is why we call it CET, because that's a big mouthful. But here's how it works. How many are aware that we now have cars that drive themselves? Which may or may not be a good thing. I'm waiting for an 8-year-old to hack the computer and make the car go crazy. But anyway, how do these things work? Well, let's step through that. They use continuous environmental tracking. These cars have a gazillion sensors on them. They know how far all the cars around them are. They know the speed. They know the weather conditions. They know all these different things, right, through these sensors. So let's walk through a scenario. Let's say that this car, the front sensor says, I am going 60 miles an hour, and I'm 8 feet away from the car in front of me. Is that a good thing? No, okay. But how would it know if it's a good thing or a bad thing? Well, somebody really smart programmed the computer and says, hey, dummy, 6 feet, 60 miles an hour, you need to back off, right? So the sensor picked up the distance and the speed, and then it said, and the computer says, whoops, I'm not doing something safe right now. So what happens next? It responds by applying the brakes until you get a safe distance, and then 2 more cars jump in front of you, but I digress. But the idea is that it is doing this, and then it goes back to just sensing. So it's detecting, looking around, it's processing that information, and then it's doing something to adjust for that. Does everybody agree that that makes sense? Do you know that animals do the same thing? Living creatures do the same thing. Huh. So this is, let me give you an example, one of my favorites. The Arctic fox, there's one called a morph, okay? And he's called a morph because he does some interesting things. So he will actually detect what time of year it is, maybe the hours of sunlight and temperatures, and then based upon that, this fox will process that information and then respond by changing the color of its coat. So in the winter, it goes to, help me out, in the summer it goes to, and it's not too hard to figure out why it would do that, right? It wants to hide from the things it's trying to eat, and sneak up on them and not be eaten. So, but here's the question. We can do this all day long. We can observe this little fox and he'll do it over and over and over again. Who taught the fox how to do that? Now we're getting into historical science. People who don't believe in God will say billions of years of evolution of trial and error, and that's how the fox developed this thing. As a creationist, biblical creationist, I say, well, God put that program in there, but somebody did. But we have switched from observational science of watching it change colors to historical science, and that's where the fights start. Okay, here's another example. This is called a cave fish, Mexican blind tetra. These fish do not have eyes. So they've done a bunch of work, and what they found out is fascinating. The eggs sense the conductivity of the water that they are in. And when they detect that there's low conductivity, I can do this, that means that there's minerals in the water, which means they're probably in a cave environment and do not need eyes. So during the process of becoming a fish, it'll switch on certain things and switch off other, and this fish will not have eyes. However, you put those same eggs in fresh water, guess what? The fish has eyes. So it's sensing, once again, it's detecting the environment that it's in. It's processing that information, responding, and it's repeatable. They can do this in a lab over and over again, which is great science. Who taught the fish to do that? Oh, switch to historical science. This is one of my favorites too. How many of you are fisher people? Let's see, yeah, fish laugh at the sound of my name. They don't tremble. But anyway, this little guy, this is called the crucian carp, and he has a natural predator called the northern pike, which if you ever caught one of those, they are nasty in terms of their teeth. So here's what happened. He goes along and goes, Oh, come on, wait a minute. I worked hard on that sound effect. Thank you. Okay, good. So this pike comes along and he eats this little carp, yum, and then you know what happens? What goes in must come out, right? Okay, so yeah, it comes out in the water. The other fish in the area sense that the brother Joe just got eaten when it comes out of that pike. Within 24 hours, those fish, the adult fish, start to do that. They start to change their shape and get bigger to make it harder for the pike to do that. How in the world did they find this out? They did it in a laboratory. They had a tank of water, okay? And they would put the carp in there, nothing happened. They put the pike in there, nothing happened until the pike ate one of the carp, and then it went through the pike, and that's what had happened. And so then they said, okay, let's just leave the fish out of the equation, and we will just go ahead and just put the poop in there, and guess what? It happened again. That's how they found out. Once again, detecting changes in the environment, processing the information, responding, okay? Last one, who's heard of deer mice? These little guys are pretty cool. They're everywhere, hiding everywhere. And they have some interesting characteristics. Now, the ones that live in the plains have shorter tails, and the ones that live in the forest have longer tails. And a long tail helps you do what? Balance when you're climbing. If you take these guys, like the scientists did, and you take them out of their environment and you put them in the opposite environment, guess what happens? Within one generation, the tails change length. Okay? There's sense in the environment that they're in, responding by having longer tails. Wow. So ICR is doing a tremendous amount of firsthand research on this subject to try to understand better how these animals are adapting. But here's the thing. You don't see that. The carp are still carp, okay? And the dogs are still, help me out, dogs. So things were created according to their kind, but they do have the ability to adapt. All right, so let's get back to the puppy dogs. So what you got is you got the ancestor come off the ark, and then there are certain environments that they live in which switch on and off certain traits based upon what they're sensing and what they're turning on, thick fur, big feet, all those things are happening, right? And then they start to mate, and you've got lots and lots of dogs. Now, dogs are a little different. There are more dogs than there should be because of people, okay? So everybody say hi to my little Rosie. Yeah, she's in heaven, bummer, okay? But she was 10 pounds of attitude. How do you get a Rosie? You get a mom and dad that look like Rosie, and they get married, because this is church, and then they have children that look like that one, okay? And then what do? Again and again and again and again, and sell them for lots of money, right? So that is called selective breeding, and we see that a lot. This would not happen in nature, where you get this kind of specificity. All right, let's play a little game. This is called Who's Your Daddy, okay? So the ones on the top are the parents, and the ones on the bottom are the puppies. So I'm going to give you some numbers, and this is, again, where you interact because it's late, and we got to kind of keep you moving. So your job is I'm going to highlight one of these adorable puppies, and then I'm going to count to 3, and then you get to yell out, yes, in church, you get to yell out, which 2 dogs you think it is. Are you ready? Cricket. Pastor, can they yell in church?
Yes.
Today, right? Today. Okay, yes. All right. So are you ready? Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, first candidate, number 1 here. On the count of 3, yell out which dogs do you think it is? Say 1 and 2 or 3 and 4, whatever you're at. 1, 2, 3, go. Final answer? All 3 of you said something. Okay, nobody else? All right, we'll keep working on you. All right. The answer is, that is a golden doodle. How many got it right? This was especially true during COVID. Everybody wanted a puppy dog, right? So, okay, you get a chance to redeem yourself. By the way, I've learned that the mama's name's first. So the mama in this one is a golden retriever, all right? All right, who about this cute little girl? 1, 2, 3, go. All right, a little more bravery here, a little more coming out. We'll keep working this. That is a Labradoodle. Oh, I see some hands in the back. Victory, all right. You get a free resource off the table, anything you want, all right. Last one is this adorable little puppy. Count of three. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. All right. Final answer. Okay, good. That is a cockapoo. I see some dancing in the back house. You got them all right. Good job. You know, the thing about selective breeding, you can take it too far. You really can. Yeah, got some volume on the. Can you hear it? Hang on a second. Let's back that up and try again. It's really important that you hear it. Ready?
I think I like this little guy.
There we go.
I love this one.
You know, you could always compromise and breed them together. Dobro Wawa. Know what I mean?
I've never seen a breed like this.
Nor have I.
I don't know what to make of it, frankly. It's unsettling. It's disturbing to look at it directly. How did this dog get past Regents? That's what I want to know.
I'm Sarah McLaughlin. Will you help these misunderstood animals?
I don't like the fact that it's looking this way.
That's it. Save yourselves!
Obviously, somebody with a lot of talent put that together, and that was pretend. You know the sad thing, folks? That's not pretend. These are the winners of the world's ugliest dog contest, if you can call them winners. I think we know where the idea for Yoda came from. What do you think? So, what do we have now? Lots and lots and lots of dogs from all these different factors, okay? But they are still within the dog kind. God created everything according to its kind. And then from there, they adapt it to their environments and different things going on. So we see lots of species within the same kind. But you will not see them jump kinds. You do not see a dog become a butterfly or a dragon or anything else. The dog is still just a dog. All right. Let's switch gears and talk about natural selection. So during the Ice Age, there were a gazillion of these things. We have found literally millions with an M of these fossils up in areas. So we know that they crossed the land bridge and between Alaska and Russia. What is Russia? So anyway, so we know we had these, but a lot of them went extinct. Do we have them today? They're gone. What happened to them? Well, there's a book out there that talks about what happened during the Ice Age that wiped out most of them. Spoiler alert. It was mainly when the Ice Age ended, there were tremendous dust storms. And most of them were wiped out by that. How do I know that? They find them standing upright. They have silt inside of their lungs and inside of their bodies, and they're buried over their head in it. Okay, kind of like when you see sandstorm pictures, that's what happened to most of them. Some of them said, I'm out of here. Okay. I used to work for the Sacramento Municipal Utility District. That's why they call it SMUD, because that's a lot of words. And we were building a power plant, okay? And when we were digging the trench, they found the bones of one of these things. Does Sacramento get hot? Yeah, okay? So those creatures, when they came down, they had three choices. It was way too hot for them, wearing all that blubber and all that, all the fur and whatnot. They could do three things: leave, go somewhere colder. If they have the ability, they can quickly adapt. Maybe you could shed its coat, but not with blubber and all that stuff, right? So the third thing is what happened to them. They perished, okay? But their cousins within the same created kind love the heat, and they're doing just fine, okay? So that is what is called natural selection. We're going to go into a little detail on this because it's so important that you understand what's going on in the evolutionary community. But it's not nature selecting anything. What it is it's all about the creature. That creature did not survive because it could not either leave or adapt quickly enough. So, we've been told that nature makes new creatures by selecting the winners and the losers, right? And I'll show you some slides that you go, what? They said that? Oh, yeah, they said that. But again, it really is, what we're really talking about is extinction. This is scientifically valid. If the environment changes or an animal goes to an area where it cannot adapt or leave, guess what? It dies. So now some evolutionists in their writings give amazing powers to natural selection. Here's a quote. So this was in an article, and it says that bats evolved from small four-legged mammals, probably resembling what? Shrews. Natural selection simply retooled the forelegs into wings, modified the animal's weight, shape, muscles, nerves, and bones for flying. Oh, we didn't need feathers. That's good. And then he says, one of the great joys of being a biologist is learning about the species and natures whose evolution would appear what? Impossible, right? So that's a faith statement. Because to get that kind of creature, time out. To get all those changes, we're not talking about a few changes here. We're talking about an entirely new creature. Can natural selection do that? So when you go to the literature and you read in the textbooks and they have explanations for how these animals suddenly grew wings and different things, here are the scientific phrases that you will see. They appeared, emerged, arose, gave rise to, evolved itself. My personal favorite became a miracle of evolution or was lucky. I'm not kidding you. These are out of textbooks. So when they get into the details of, wait a minute, how did you go from a shrew to a bat? They say, oh, it happened. Why do they do that? Because they have decided that there is no God. And we have bats. And so they have to come up with some sort of narrative to take it from these shrews to bats. And they're so convinced in their narrative that they will, believe in things that are impossible. So I always ask my students to ask good questions, right? So in this case, since bats are very complicated, where would nature get the information to make all that new stuff? Good question. It can't. Second one is, how would a creature that is half bat and half shrew survive? So let's think about this. I had 4 legs as a shrew. I could run and hide. I'm in the process of transitioning to a bat. My wings aren't done yet. I can't fly. I can't run. When something comes along, I am what? Lunch. Okay? Can't get away. You can't fly. You can't run. You're just going to get eaten up. So the chances of a creature surviving like that are 0. Also, how did echolocation evolve? So those of you who know what sonar and radar is, it's very complicated. We use that in submarines and on airplanes and different things. It's very sophisticated technology. Bats have it. So do dolphins. How did that just put itself together? Is that a fair question? Because it's a really complicated system that we have spent years to develop. And then finally, why are there no pre-bats? Why do we not find this half shrew, half bat thing? We have uncovered billions of fossils. It doesn't exist. So what we are seeing is somebody's faith in historical science saying that this happened, even though it appears impossible, because they have ruled out the existence of God. And the sad thing is it's in textbooks that kids are reading, and it's presented as concrete fact. And just before that, they will talk about some real science and talk about some characteristics of the bats and the creatures, and then they'll throw that in there, and then they'll continue with more real science and things. So I call it sandwiching. They're mixing in historical and observational science all together, and people believe it. All right. Some important notes about natural selection. Nature does not have a mind. When you read the scientific journals, it's crazy how if you took out the phrase natural selection and put in the word God, it would read perfectly. God formed new creatures. God made legs. God did this. Instead, they say natural selection did this. Natural selection did this. Natural selection. So they have replaced God with nature. All right? It does not create or form new creatures. The ability or inability of the creature itself determines whether or not it survives. Nobody is picking. There's nobody behind the curtain selecting. It is all about the creatures and their ability to adapt. All right, so let's review. Adaptation, programmed responses to changes in the environment, CET. Genetic recombinations, when you mix different types of breeds of dogs, you get different types of dogs. And then we have extinction, which some people call natural selection. Whew. These are all observable, testable, repeatable, and fit within the realm of observational science. So back to the question, do you believe in evolution? They're probably thinking this. And you just said no. And they went, boy, you don't know anything about science. And they walked away. And that's a lost opportunity, because what we want to do is have conversations with people. That's why if somebody says, do you believe in evolution? What do you say? What do you mean by that? And that way the conversation can continue. All right. Now let's talk about Darwinian evolution, the goo to the zoo to you. What is Darwinian evolution? So leave it to the biology teachers. I'm going to get letters about that, sorry. This is their definition. Wow. Hey Johnny, you are a result of an unsupervised, impersonal, unpredictable, natural process, blah, 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 blah. Let's break it down to this. Time plus chance equals everything. That's really what it boils down to, okay? So how did life begin? Was it just this magic lightning strike? They can't answer that, so let's get rid of that, okay? Now, when Darwin was around and he looked at a cell under a microscope, all he could see was a blob of jello. He thought, that's pretty simple. Nature could do that. So today with our microscopes, we can really look deep into the human cells and other cells. They're miniature cities with biological machinery and all kinds of things going on. And it all works together for a purpose, and going, who did that? I know. Okay. But it is the deeper we look at living creatures, the more incredibly complicated they are. So to believe that they somehow put themselves together, I don't care how much time you give it, is really, we're talking about a belief system. Okay. So this is what comes in the textbooks. This is called the evolutionary tree of life. Everything started with that chemical down here, and over billions of years evolved into everything we see today. Can random mutations add complex information? Now, just to be clear, a cow with two heads is additional information. Is it helpful? No. Okay, that's a copying mistake. What I'm talking about is, can a mutation add the type of information to make wings or to make new features that the creature has never had before, right? So these are, I looked it up, and I could show you lots of PhD scientists that have looked into it, and they're saying no. All it can really do is modify existing information within the creature itself. It cannot create. And I could put a bunch of these up, but you get the point. These are PhD scientists at well-known colleges admitting it doesn't happen. So in order to go from goo to the zoo to you, we need lots of information. We need a mechanism to provide that information, turn it into useful programming to create these new features. Here's another scary smart guy. He says, there is no known law of nature, no known process that can create new information. Information always comes from an intelligent source. Wow. Wow. Pretty powerful. By the way, there was an evolutionist named Sir Fred Hoyle, mathematician, astronomer, evolutionist, and I guess he had too much time on his hands. He decided to sit down and calculate the odds of what it would take to go from goo to the zoo to you. And here's the odds. The same odds as throwing a 600 dice 5 million times in a row. It's the same odds of having a tornado go through a junkyard and make an airplane. Anybody want to fly on that one? I don't. Okay. That's why when it comes to the question of origins, you have to have faith, whether or not you believe in creation or evolution. They're both faith-based systems when you back it all the way up. Evolution, Darwinian evolution, is by definition a religion. Now again, I'm talking about goo to you to the zoo, or other way around, goo to the zoo to you. Maybe we should put people back in. All right. So this is why the Bible says that when you look at the things that are made, people are supposed to go, okay, somebody really smart made that, and look up and go, is that you, Lord? And we know that when people seek the Lord, does he answer? Yes, he does. Okay. But what they have done is just like Romans 1:25 called it out. They have exchanged the truth to a lie, worship and serve what? The creation instead of the creator. Wow. And I got to tell you, it makes me sad. It also makes me concerned because I see lots of youth not understanding these differences and going down the pathway of walking away from their faith because they somehow think that this is all proven stuff. All right. By the way, do all real scientists believe in Darwinian evolution? Because that's what Bill Nye, the science guy, said. Well, there is a website right here where 1,000 PhD scientists have gone down on this petition saying that they have problems with Darwinian evolution. Now, why is that a big deal? Because they're taking a big risk by doing that. If you don't follow the party line, you can lose your ability to publish, you can lose your PhD, you will be ostracized, you'll be singled out. So for this many scientists, PhDs, to come down and say, we don't believe in Darwinian evolution tells you something, doesn't it? And yet, like I said, Bill Nye, the science guy, Dawkins, and others will say, only, all real scientists believe in evolution. I beg to differ. All right. So final recap. Adaptation, genetic variation, natural selection, which is really extinction, are not the same thing. But what they will do, either intentionally or unintentionally, it's called equivocation. They will say, no, they are the same thing. It just takes more time. But hopefully tonight I have shown you they're not at all the same thing. So these are observable, testable, repeatable, and falsifiable, and this meets none of the scientific criteria to be called science. It really is a belief system. Okay, evolutionary tree of life. Bye. This is what we really see. God created things according to their kind, and he told them to be fruitful and multiply. And he gave them the ability to do just that within limits, but they stay within that created kind. Anybody know what that blue line is? The flood. Very good. But should we do this? Easy says, no, you're right. We talked about this morning. The reason that my friends and I do this ministry is not so that you can be the smartest person in the room. It's not so that you can get that zinger in on that person that's bugging you on social media. Take that. It really is all about so that you are so confident in the word of God that you will share Jesus Christ. Okay. So this is my life verse. And God is really working on me on this. Always be prepared to give a answer. Do so with gentleness and respect. Okay. But as we talked about this morning, if you're given an answer, that means somebody asked you why would they ask you a question? Because hopefully you're doing your best to live like Jesus. You're loving people. You're as honest as you can be. You're hardworking. You care about people. You are different. And people see that and go, what's up? Or something like that. Now, my daughter, when she was, I can't remember if it was junior high or high school, this girl comes up to her, got in her face. What's wrong with you? The daughter's like, whoa, chick, back off. Well, what do you mean what's wrong with me? Why are you so nice? Oh, I didn't know that was a problem, but Jesus said I have to be. Who? Oh, there came the question. My daughter was clearly different. So much that it bugged this girl. You want to find out, why are you so nice? Nobody's that nice. Is it real? And then when she asked the reason why, my daughter pointed her to Jesus. Now, after that came the questions. What about what was taught in biology today? What about this? What about the flood? What about this? What about that? I don't know. That's where the apologetics training comes in so that we are prepared to give an answer. But guess what? If we lead with apologetics, you'll get nowhere. It really has to be to draw people closer to you to where they want to know Jesus, and then you can give them good answers and have those conversations. Because it's not about winning arguments. It's about what? Yeah. All right. some suggestions. Remember, it is all about Jesus. Who's the creator? Yes, Jesus is the creator. Let's try to do our best. Remember, the number one reason on the survey about why people are walking away is hypocrisy, people not walking the talk, okay? And then realize that God's word is the truth. And I tell my students when I go to schools, stop checking the textbook to see if your Bible's correct. Check your Bible to see if the textbook is correct. Those textbooks have been rewritten and written and rewritten, and lots of them are full of mistakes, okay? And the last one is do your homework. The good news is it is a great time to be a creationist and a Christian because there is just so much information out there, including our stuff. Now, again, we're just three guys in a PowerPoint, but the Lord has blessed us immensely in terms of what we've been able to do. Excuse me. If you remember one thing, please remember this website. It has links to little banners that you can click on and go to all of our different resources. Yesterday, we added 30 one-minute videos of a classroom interactions between a student and teachers. Have you seen any of them yet? Yep. You like them? Yep. They're all 50 seconds to 1 minute, designed perfect for our attention spans these days, right? So, all right. And then we have different training programs. This one over here, the idea is you go to the website, you click on that banner, and you can watch videos. And then this little workbook has small group questions, fill in the blank type thing. It's really meant for a small group study. You'll see a ton of them on the table. So if you want to lead a small group at your church, take a handful, please. If you need more, let us know. I know a guy who can do that, right? Yeah, all right. Again, YouTube, we've been given really good success on there. Lots of different videos. It is our most powerful way to do it. We have who has a smartphone? We have a free app, and yes, it's free. no tricks. It's a free app, and it gives you access to a lot of our videos and stuff in a way that a lot of people find useful. And then during COVID, I felt the Lord leading me to put all those lessons I've been doing for 20 years for kids on video. And I told the Lord I don't like cameras. He said, I'm the Lord, dummy. I know that. Do it anyway. So we converted, my wife and I converted our, not really an exercise room, call it a storage room, to a studio, and we put together 30 videos. You can see the age groups there. They're free handouts, puzzles, activities, notes for the lessons. And the videos are anywhere from 6, I think the longest is about 16, 17 minutes, but it's dinosaurs. So who cares? They can go forever, right? All right, and then we do have some different movies. This one here is all about a group of students that go to a museum of natural history, and they one of them respectfully takes on the docent. Now, I must tell you, this is an enactment. We actually looked at going to the real Museum of Natural History, and we're told it is $10,000 a night to rent, and they get to approve all of your content before you publish it. What do you think the chances of them approving our content are? Slim and none. So it would have been a nice donation to them. No thanks. So we actually hired actors and did an enactment, but they do a really credible job of showing some questions that we should be asked. Because I got to tell you, first time I walked through the Museum of Natural History and came out, I almost cried. It's like anybody who is not equipped is going to come out of here and they're going to lose their faith based upon how convincing this stuff is. Okay? So we got books galore for those who like books. This is the top 50 questions that we get every year out of the thousands of emails. This is a new resource, which I apologize, I should take the slide out. I don't have any today. We ran out, but this is things from my life story, talking about why bad things happen to good people. I share my life story and what God has shown me through years of suffering. Okay, yes, we went there. This book does not slam anybody. It really is all about the scientific differences between men and women, besides the obvious. I mean, hearing, smell, eyesight, the way our brains work. We are designed to work together. It's really fascinating. And if you want to experience God's maximum blessing, we follow his design. All right. And then we are actually working on a full featured film, a movie for the theaters called Hearken to Darkness. Guess what? We have reached the stretch break. So we're going to give it 10 minutes. Please get up, stretch, get some water, use the bathroom, check out the resources, and we will get started again.